Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting. This meeting is to consider applications for minor variances and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. The role of the committee is to review the proposals that are before it, consider the evidence provided, and make a decision based on the four tests established by the Planning Act. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing on the town's live stream page at oakville.ca/live. People attending this committee meeting are asked to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and others in attendance. We ask that your cellular devices be switched off at this time or at least maintained on silent. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. All persons wishing to address the committee are required to provide their name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to all speakers. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the chair. Any materials presented to the committee for the viewing will remain the property of this committee. Persons seeking a deferral or withdrawal of an application will be invited to do so at the onset of the meeting. If a request for a deferral is granted, it is the responsibility of the applicant to contact the Secretary-Treasurer regarding the scheduling of any new hearing date. At the request of the committee, the applicant may be asked to provide a brief presentation and answer any questions that may arise. If the applicant has any concerns with the recommendations and proposals of conditions found within the staff report, this is the time to advise the committee. All persons who wish to support or oppose the application will then be given an opportunity to speak to the committee. In the interest of efficiency, groups sharing the same point of view are asked to select a spokesperson, and individual speakers are asked to not cover the same points as those who have already spoken. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to respond to comments made by interested parties, answer any additional questions from the committee, and then discussions will be closed and the matter will be taken into the committee for decision. Once the committee has made an oral decision, any person desiring a written copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided on the table at the back of the room for this purpose, and only those filing such a request will be given any subsequent notice of any appeal. Notice of the committee's decision will be mailed to the applicant and anyone who filed a written request no later than 10 days following the decision for a minor variance and 15 days for consent applications. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the last day to appeal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision will then be notified by written correspondence. Thank you. So we have no regrets this evening. Any declaration of pecuniary interests? I see none, thank you. At this time, I will be taking requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications. Go ahead. Hi, Mr.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
This is John Wilmot. I'd like to request a deferral of application CAV 114-2019.
That's at 210 Gloucester Avenue.
Correct.
Just give me a moment, Mr. Wilmot. Who is here for application CAV 114 of 2019 at 210 Gloucester Avenue? I see none. Okay. What is the reason for the deferral?
During the staff review, they discovered another variance, potential variance that has come up, and we'd like to add it. Although we could seek approval for the coverage variance that we have, the calculation of the front setback differs. How do I put that? There's a discrepancy with how that's calculated, and so we'd like to ensure that the location of the house as designed is maintained, and that we wouldn't have to move it accordingly.
Okay, very well. Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Are there any questions of Mr. Wilmot at this time? Any items of clarification? I see none. All those in support of the deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred. Thank you.
Sorry, what meeting do we intend to be on? We'll do that
the earliest
tomorrow?
that we have is October 8th, if you can get everything in to the Secretary-Treasurer at that time.
It'll be in tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe I spoke to Craig.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, I saw another hand. Hello, good evening. Your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Parker of Carruthers and Associates. I'm here for application address 135 Speyside Drive.
Okay, so this is application CEV 112 of 2019 at 135 Speyside Drive. Who is here for this application? I see none. Okay. And you would like to?
I'd like to request deferral. We have read through the staff comments and see that staff are not in support of our application. I have reached out to the planner on the file, Brandon Hassan, and spoken with him. We're confident that we can come to a resolution that both the clients and he will be happy with, so we're going to revise our application.
Very well. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Are there any questions or items of clarification? Okay, all those in support of a deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred. Thank you. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer when you're ready to schedule the next meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other deferrals or withdrawals at this time? I see none. Okay, so our first item on our agenda is CAV 108 of 2019 at 754 Bronte Road. Good evening. Your name and address for
Good
the
evening.
record?
Yes, my name is Wajid Mansouri. I'm the architect engineer for 754 Bronte Road and representing the client.
Very well. Good evening, Mr. Mansouri. Who is here for application CV 108 of 2019 at 754 Bronte Road? This is for the enlargement of the existing motor vehicle service station. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Mansouri?
I have a question for town staff.
You have a question for town staff. Mr. Hassan, we have a question regarding this application.
Mr. Hassan, Madam Chair, through you to Mr. Hassan, the requested conditions from circulated agencies don't indicate a dated site plan or elevations drawing. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, this application is also concurrently being reviewed through a full site plan application, so those approved drawings will be in accordance with the director's approved plans.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you.
well. Mr. Mansouri, do you have anything further to add to your application? Would you like, this is your time. You may take us through your presentation, or we've done our site visits and familiar with the application. It's up to you if you have anything further to add.
No, it's
or-
pretty, everything is clear, and as you can see on the site, currently there's an existing gas station there and pretty close to the stable top of the bank. And we're moving everything according to with conservation of Halton, so that's going to be a setback of 15 meters from the property line, and everything is all in accordance with the zoning bylaw.
Very well, thank you. Any further questions before we take this matter into committee? Okay. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note the staff is in support of, having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there were no written or oral objections from the public. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all four of the tests under the plan. Sorry,
No.
I'm,
That's
oh,
because it's 45 too.
sorry, that it meets,
Give her my decision. Or like you can.
that it meets, the application has been filed under the Town of Oakville under Section 45-2 of the Planning Act, and it meets the conditions there. The requested conditions from circulated agencies are that the motor vehicle station be built in accordance with the final approved site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Murray. Any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Application CAV 109 of 2019 at 2172 Spears Road.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Eva Matai. I'm acting on behalf of the agent. I'm from Matai Architects, architect of the record on this file.
Can you pronounce your last name again, please?
MATAG, Matai.
Matai, okay. Ms. Matai, just give me a moment to canvass the
Sure.
room, please. Who is here for application CAV 109 of 2019 at 2172 Spears Road? You're here in opposition or in support? Opposition. Okay. All right, Ms. Matai, can you please take us through your presentation, and then we'll give the neighbors a chance to speak. Are you represented by someone, or is everyone going to speak? Can I see a show of hands again, just so that we have an organization to this process? Okay. Are we all speaking, or do we have someone that's going to represent the group?
I don't think we have one person.
Okay, so you'd all like to speak. Are there couples in the audience, or is they're all single individuals who raise their hands? Okay, so perhaps the couples can have one person speak on their behalf? Very well. Okay, the floor yours, Ms. Matash.
All right, so we this development, I believe you've had the chance to go through. This development has a very unique site. It's a very deep lot. Has the access point on this lot is very narrow and deep. So it has been wasted on 25 meter before you start entering the property. The area of this site is proper for two building developments. So when the owner approached us, he was under the impression that he can build two buildings. So we went through the site design, and we tried to stay within the limits of the zoning bylaw. We respected all the setbacks all around the building, and also all the trees that are on the south side of the property. And we came up with a solution to have a low building at the back of the property and a higher building in the front. The only zoning that we cannot meet, the only zoning bylaw we cannot meet is the building setback, the front setback. So this application is in request from 17.5 meter setback that is required. We want to go to 167 meter setback. This is to accommodate, and as I can see from the comment from the review panel, this is to accommodate the first phase of this development that's going at the back. The first phase development is an office building, is matching with the official plan of this property for office development. The phase two development will be a higher building. It will be still a 10-story commercial building, most likely another office building. The parking that has been dedicated to this property is in the middle. It will be mostly underground, but the surface parking will be accommodating phase one to begin with. So on this application, we're only requesting one setback adjustment. From 17.5 to 167 meter.
Are there any questions of Ms. Mataj at this time? Okay, I see none. Okay, I'll invite you to sit down, and
Sure.
we'll hear from the neighbors. Who would like to come down first? I don't really care, just anyone. Maybe start in the front. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Jennifer Blumfield, and we are at 2083 Saxon Road.
Blumfield?
Yeah.
183.
You're at 183.
No, 2083
2083
Saxon Road.
Saxon. Okay, let me just find you on this. Okay, got you.
Okay, so the way I'm understanding it now is it's not going to be one building, it's going to be two?
That's
Is that correct?
Yes, they're phasing the development, so the first building that's going to be built is the one in the back, and that's why they've applied for this variance, which is a lot farther in, just to provide for that building. And then the second phase will be the second commercial building that's going to come within the bylaw requirements of 17 meters setback from the front.
So the increase in the maximum space is actually going to be encroaching towards our property?
We'll get the applicant to answer that question. You're at 2083 Saxton, so you're,
Find that, 2083?
yeah, she's here. Saxton, right? Saxton Road.
2083, okay, that's fine.
So you're in the back of the development.
Yeah, I believe if you're facing Spears Road, we're a little bit to the right
So-
of where the development will be. So we already have
So
some buildings at
you-
the back?
Yes, the building will be, the building that they're building is,
To our left,
yes, it's,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so my concern is that it's not one building, it's now two. We already have a significant amount of noise from the properties that are at the back of us already, warehouses. And we simply don't want more noise and traffic.
It is an office building, that's what I can say. I mean, it's not a factory, it's an office building, so
So how many offices in this office building?
I can't answer that question. Ms. Mataj, are you taking notes? Yeah. Okay, very good. So maybe we'll list your concerns, and I'll try and answer as much as possible, but Ms. Mataj will answer the bulk of your concerns.
Okay.
But you understand that this development is within the bylaw requirements. It's within their right to develop this property as such. The only request that they're asking is for that 167 meters in order to facilitate the development of the first building first, and then move on to the second building.
I understand that.
Okay. So what are your other concerns other than noise
Noise and traffic.
and traffic?
Those are my concerns.
Okay.
What's behind us now is noisy,
Right?
and I know this is not completely relevant, but they do work sometimes at 6 p.m. on a Sunday night. And I understand that this building is to be an office and not a warehouse. But I'm not happy with what we have at the back of us already. So I would oppose this.
Understood. We thank you for your submissions.
Okay, thank you.
Do I need to respond? No, you'll respond at the end when everyone has had a chance to speak. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Lorenzo Biondi. I'm actually representing my son, Kevin Nunes, who resides at 2093 Saxon Road. So 2093.
2093. I'm just trying to find you on our map.
Yeah, it's angled lot on Saxon Road.
Okay, yes,
You see it?
got you, yes.
Okay, so concern similar. I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack on this. I've read your assessment, and your assessment basically says that this change is minor and should not impact the neighbors, which is two of the criteria that you have to make your assessment on whether or not to grant the variance. Well, the variance is asking for a tenfold increase in the setback requirement, which literally places the building from typically the front of the lot to where buildings normally are to right at the back. As a result of placing it right at the back, in the case of my son, his lot is angled, and he's going to be staring at this building. There's a lot of windows at the back of the building, so he's going to be looking at the people in the offices, and the people in the offices are going to be looking back at him. So it's a little bit disturbing from the perspective that not knowing what coverage there'll be back there, there could be a direct line of sight between the two buildings. So that's definitely a concern because that'll impact their privacy in their backyard, and they do have a pool. So basically, those are the concerns. That the variance that's being required is actually quite large. It does position the building in a point in the lot, which is a little bit unusual. I'm not a builder, but I know a little bit about bylaws, and this does seem to place it in a very unusual location. There are other locations on that lot that the building could be placed of if there's a reconfiguration of the two buildings that are planned that actually will allow all the residents at the back of those two back streets a little bit more privacy, and yet allow them to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish as well. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your submission, sir. Who is next? Not a point. I mean, they could have done this and they could. Good evening. Your name
Good
and address
evening,
for the
yeah.
record.
My name's Don Cooper, and I reside at 598 Trafford.
598?
Trafford, yeah.
598 Trafford. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. I think I share the same concerns as the last speaker. I guess my first concern is there a reason why 10 stories has been selected? There are no other buildings of that height between Bronte Road and, for that matter, really all the way over to, I would guess, Kerr Street along that stretch of Spears Road. It doesn't seem reasonable to me that all of a sudden a 10-story building should go up in that area. We back right directly onto that property, and so does a number of other neighbors along that stretch. There have been a number of concerns with regard to the buffer of trees that exist between our properties and the neighboring property, the one that's being developed. There's been very little attention given to that buffer area. In terms of, there are a number of ash trees that have died. They are currently, or were currently, marked for removal. They have not been removed, and in fact, 3 of them have fallen onto our property.
Okay.
I know this may not be the, sorry, I'm a little nervous, but
Oh, don't worry about it.
this may not be the forum to discuss that, but we're not the only property that has experienced that kind of a problem.
Yes.
So I think the owners of the property, the developer of the property, should address those concerns of the neighboring properties as well, and action on things that they've promised to action on and have not. And as I say, I don't believe that this is a forum for me to necessarily present my concerns, but we are prepared to move legally on some of the issues that are of concern to our property. With respect to the height of the building, I just wonder why 10 stories. That to me just seems a little bit outrageous for the area. It was, I believe, zoned for commercial light industrial or something of that sort. It's been changed to accommodate office, but there's a difference between a low office environment and a high rise, which that falls into. So, as I say, I think that the developer really does need to take a look at the buffer of trees and what's going to happen there. I think the architect must be part of that as well. And I believe that we are owed some kind of a buffer, some decent type of buffer, that allows us, to basically live in a reasonable way without having to look out onto a 10-story building.
I note your concern.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I really do. I mean, my last point, I guess, just to stress is the lack of care of the buffer area, and as I say, it's caused damage to our property.
Okay.
And we have had no action from the developer to reconcile that.
Have you spoken to anyone?
I've prepared a letter. I had the representative come to our house. I presented him with a report that details all of the damage that's occurred. We've had nothing but lip service in terms of action that they're prepared to take or not prepared to take. We've had a fair amount of damage, upwards around $7,000.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Mr.
And
Hassan?
as I say, there's other property owners who are experiencing similar situations, maybe not to the same degree, but I can't speak for them.
Yeah, you're very close to you're in the angled area, right, very close to your property is immediately
It's
on
directly,
the
it directly faces
Yeah.
it.
Mr. Cooper, before you go, I think Ms. Murray had a question.
I do, and thank you for your presentation. Can you share with me, you indicated or intimated that the developer had made assurances in the past?
They promised, we've had 3 occurrences now where trees have fallen onto the property. We've had to take care of that ourselves because there was no action taken by anybody. We made attempts to talk to the managing partner of the developer. He came and met with us. We presented him with a report at that time. Nothing was done. The first occurrence occurred on May the 4th of 2017, or 2018, sorry. 2018. The second occurrence was on November the 21st or 23rd of that same year. And then more recently than that, there's been a third tree that hasn't caused any damage, not nearly the damage that the first 2 trees have caused. We have, since then in April, sought out legal advice, and we have filed actually a letter with the developer, but still haven't had no action on that at all.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Hassan, this is on the second submission review for site plan, correct? Have any of the neighbors been circulated the site plan meetings so that they can comment and, no?
No, through you, Madam Chair, typically staff like to have a comfort level with the variances in terms of approval before moving forward with bringing the site plan to the site plan committee for a decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, Ms. Murray has a question.
Question, Madam Chair, through you to Planning Services. Does the site plan, to the best of your knowledge, address the landscape buffer that is in question?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that the landscape plan has been reviewed and is satisfactory to staff. Again, further review through the variance application process would prompt us going towards the site plan committee for that landscape plan to be confirmed.
Thank you.
You may not be able to answer that question. Well, maybe Ms. Mataj can answer it as well. But in looking at this development, their access is from a very narrow point off of Spears. So why was the location of that building not angled on a different area? And then the parking could have been left in the back there where the building is right now. Was that at any point in time a part of the discussion or the orientation of the buildings?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, unfortunately, I'm not too sure about the discussions that were held prior to the variance being applied for in terms of conceptually where the buildings would go. Perhaps the applicant is able to shed some light on that.
Perfect. Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to staff, actually. Through the site plan review process and the landscape plan process, a landscape plan would be approved, correct? As part of that approval, that would include the addition of new materials as well as removal, rehabilitation of any plants that might be there, and inspections at the end of the process to ensure compliance?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that's correct, and additional securities would be taken in to ensure that the landscaping is planted correctly. And my understanding is that a minimum of 20% landscape canopy coverage has to be maintained on site.
So if there are dead trees or dying trees, their condition would be assessed, and if need to be removed, compliance would be required before the release of those securities at the end of the process?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that would be assessed through the submission of the arborist report as well in terms of the decline and health of any trees existing on site and the planting of new trees and other vegetation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, not at this time. Thank you, Mr. Cooper, for your
Thank you.
submissions. Who would like to address the committee next?
Mary Bradley, 574 Trafford Crescent. I'm well aware of what the zoning is because we have quite a history with that lot and what was there before, and we appreciate that it is now office employment, which is much less intrusive than the previous zoning. I guess I wanted to reinforce what Don Cooper said. We also have dead trees behind us. We've had emails back and forth with Arif Ismail, who represents the company, and he keeps assuring us that he's going to come and deal with these dead trees. I mean, it will be very nice to have a landscape buffer at some point, but in the meantime, we haven't had one fall, but we have one leaning over our telephone wire, which could fall at any point. Just last week, Mr. Ismail asked me to send him a picture of it, but it's kind of all talk and no action. And I guess one of our big concerns is the good faith of the developer. From what we've had so far, you know, they talk as if they're going to carry out things, but we're really concerned that the buffering and so on will be carried out. And I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm not really clear on where this variance is. Like, we've been talking and people are saying, well, here on the map, this is where the variance is. So I would appreciate it if somebody could show us exactly where this frontage is and where the variance is.
Well, if you looked at this map, basically this is the variance that they're requesting in order for them to put the building in the back of the lot.
So it's the long part
Yeah,
that goes along Spears Road?
The agent can actually address that and show it better so that it projects and you can see it on the projector when she comes up. But I just wanted to make sure that I've got all your concerns down so that she had a chance to reply to them as well.
Okay, well, it's mainly the good faith and the proper buffering. The 10-story building, I don't know, as from my understanding, it is acceptable in the zoning. I could be wrong, but that was my reading of the zoning. Naturally, we would prefer not to have a 10-story building, but we certainly would want to have proper buffering and landscaping, and our concern really is, again, a good faith thing on the part of this developer, because so far they're not really showing it to us.
And rightfully so. How long has it been since you've communicated with the developer? And
Well, I
no
just
action has
talked,
been
I
taken
just had a telephone call with him this week,
this week?
and he said he was out of the country or something, but it's always like, I think it was a year and a half or 2 years ago that they were going to come and cut down trees, and then there was some crisis in the family, and it was like, sorry, we can't come today, when we were going to come, but then like 2 years go by.
I forgot to
and-
ask Mr. Cooper the same question. Where is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone out.
He was out of the country then too when he first started.
And how long ago was that?
2018, the early 20,
Yeah. The trees have all been marked. They all have
Okay.
marked, and we tried to ascertain why the trees were marked, and nobody could tell us. The developer claimed they didn't mark the trees. The town, I went to various people in the town, the forestry department. I finally found somebody in forestry who said likely what it was they're going through an application process, and they have to kind of enumerate the trees, and that's what it was. But nobody actually is claiming that they marked these trees. But there are very clearly dead ash trees that have been there for several years now. And the property changed ownership. It was owned by Oakville Hydro, and then I guess at the time the town was dealing with the priorities in terms of cutting down dead trees, so these trees kind of got missed. So they've been there for a long time. They're brittle. They're starting to fall.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bradley. Anyone else that would like to address the committee? This is your chance to address the committee. Once the agent is invited to respond to your comments, no one else will be able to speak, and we have this problem with large groups all the time, that people decide that they have something to say once the agent has responded. So please be sure that you've said everything you've had to say before the agent is invited to respond. Okay. Ms. Mataj, the floor is yours. There's several issues that you need to respond to, and then we may have more questions for you.
Okay, so I think
So first,
most
maybe
of
put the
site plan.
Yeah, the site plan on the projector and just show everybody exactly what we're talking about so that everyone in the room is clear on it. And the projector is right there where the blue mat is. If you
Here.
Yes. So if you just center it, they'll be able to focus it and we'll be able to see everything.
Okay. All right, so just for clarity, I think somebody asked where is this setback? So the entrance to the property, it's this narrow portion here. We have about 25-meter part
You
of
need
the
to speak
hydro.
into the microphone so everyone can hear. Just,
Sorry.
you can bring it close to you
Yeah,
if you want.
it's fine. All right, so it's about 25-meter in with a narrow portion here. So that's the tight point when we get in. And then it's this is the phase 2. Now I have to maybe shift through the questions here, but the 10-story building is not something we're going for at this time. It's this is just an idea. So I don't think you need to worry about the 10-story right now because this was more just a placeholder. The one that we are applying for on a site plan application is the office building, which is a very low building. It's a 2-story building with a little portion here that has the 5-meter height restriction within 15-meter setback from the residential portion on the south. Right, so the 10-story, just a placeholder, this is what we're going for currently on phase 1. This may be something else later on. So to begin with, I see a lot of concerns regarding the maintenance of the trees along the south property. I think I've heard a little bit from the ownership that they are trying to do to maintain those trees, but I'll pass that concern to him when we meet. I think it's not in my power to have anything to do with this, but I understand your concern, and I know that there are some trees that are falling. When we went back and forth with the city on the buffer, since we're talking about the buffer, we had different schemes, and we came up to this one to keep most of the buffer zone untouched, and all the important trees are to be kept on site. We're just removing a few that are damaged and adding more. So we are improving, actually, the buffer zone along the residential line. On this one, I think when one of the concerns was the privacy on that one. This is an employment zone, so the residential portion is on the south one, right? So, and here we have a 1-story building. There are no windows that are looking on the properties adjacent, the residential properties here on that side. So the 2-story building starts on this line. And this is basically the zoning. We complied with the zoning on this one. For 15 meter along the residential line, we couldn't build more than 5 meter. moving forward, this is the the office building on a two-story level. Coming back to a question regarding how many offices, right now it's a shell building. We don't know, but in my opinion, it's about maybe 4 or 5 offices per floor, and you have two-story office here. Traffic issues. Now, they are, we try to, there is a woodlot zone here. It's a large area here with original or native trees, right? The position of the building was put there for the benefit of the office users, so at least in one side they see more green space, and they have parking on the other side. And the parking would have been shared between 2 phases, so this was on the benefit of a 2-building development on site, so they can share parking. And in my opinion, it's better to have all in one rather than separating the parking on 2 sides. Most of the parking of this building is planned to be underground, so a lot of traffic will be avoided in a future phase with the parking going down. Regarding the noise, I think it would be a lot better. I think one of you mentioned that you had problems with trucks, hydro trucks moving in and out, and maybe noise during the weekends. It is in a much better solution right now in an office building. When in a normal hour setup, it will be 9 to 5, right? So that would be when the office will close. So beyond 5 or beyond working hours, I don't think you're going to see any more cars moving in and out. So that's regarding the buffer. I think we discussed parking, the location of the building. We discussed the 10-story phase 2 is just, as I said, a placeholder. The concerns with the dead trees will be for sure talked to with the ownership. I'm sure he's going to follow up. I believe he's, as the plan mentioned here, the landscape, the current phase is we are on the second submission of the site plan, so it has been a lot of back and forth with landscape review. So all the trees that are to be cut, they have been already inspected and they are marked to be removed. So you can see that, may as well see that, I guess, if the site plan can be released, one of the documents for the trees that are to be removed, you can see that, but it will be taken care for all the trees that are not healthy. They will be replaced and improved. I'm sorry if I missed any other concern? Yeah.
No, you,
right, so.
the setback, just,
So
yeah, highlight the setback for her.
Yeah, the setback, it would have been, so you have, if you see here, you have this L-shaped line, right? The setback would be 17.5 meters offset or beyond that line. So even if we were to comply with the zoning bylaw, we would not have met that, at least for this portion. On the phase 2 building, we are on the setback, so we're on 17.5, but because this is a big lot, you know, it's, and the client wanted to go on 2 buildings set up, we plan to do initially was the phase 1 to be done, but then we considered that phase 1 because he's not prepared to commit to this one. So we did the 2-story building as phase 1 and left this as a pad for a future phase. All the parking is as per the requirement. All the other setbacks are as per requirement. All the heights are as per the bylaw.
So the parking is going to be completed.
This parking belongs to phase 1.
Okay.
So this is 134 parking spaces as required by the calculations.
Are there any questions of Ms. Mataj at this time? I'm sorry, Mr. Cooper, I was very clear how our bylaws are. That's why I said make sure that you've made all your comments before the applicant is asked back to respond to your concerns. So this matter now is with us as a committee. Mr. Talowski, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The material the committee has, you've applied for the maximum of 167,
Right.
and but you're showing 164.73.
It may be probably a roundup on the numbers.
But we have to, when we approve a variance, we approve it based on the drawings that you've submitted. So which is it? Is it 167 or is it 164.73 meters?
No, it's 166.69.
Mr. Hassan, do you care to comment on this discrepancy?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. My understanding is that zoning staff prepare the notices with the applicant, and they use a program based on the drawings as submitted in the PDF to scale how far the setback is. So I presume that's why the setback in the notice is noted at 167 based on the Adobe software that would have been used.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Murray, you have a question?
I have a question. You've noted that there are 134 parking spaces. That's the requirement for a two-story building?
That is the requirement.
Okay.
And on yours, you have a lot of bubbled areas. Those areas are not going to be developed, correct?
No, the bubbled areas are, this is one of the sheets we sent for the resubmission. It's probably, I don't have the one that was submitted. No, the bubble areas are just revisions for resubmission.
Oh, okay. Are there any further questions of Ms. Mataj? Are we prepared to take this matter into committee? Okay, so if you have nothing further to add, we will take this matter into committee.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Ian, thank you.
having reviewed my site visit and having heard the applicant on their presentation this evening, as well as taking into account some of the comments from the neighborhood, it has been noted that this site is zoned E1. So what is being proposed is permitted with the exception of the setback. The setback is determined based on the type of the layout on the site. I know that there was comments with regards to noise and traffic from one of the neighbors, and I'm just looking based on where the location is of the office building. You know, my opinion is if you were to move the office building over sort of more central, then, you know, I know noise and traffic is not meeting with the test, but I just wanted to comment that I would think you would have more noise and traffic because then that would be parking area there if this building is moved up and the setback was less. As well as the comments with regards to the building height, that was with regards to the other building that complies, so I'm not going to speak to that. Noting that there are some issues with the neighbors on the buffering zone and that some of this will be dealt with, I believe, in the site plan approval process. So I'd like to move that this application be approved as applied for, noting that there's no negative impacts with regards to the setback applied for, and that it meets the tests of the Planning Act, and noting that the staff report is in support of this application as well. Sorry, is there a condition here? Thank you. And that it be approved with the following conditions: that the office building be built in general accordance with the final approved site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Tosky, can you just take the chair for a moment?
Certainly.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that for the benefit of everyone in attendance from the neighbors, that I'm just reiterating what Mr. Flemington was saying, based on the presentation that we received, where the parking lot is and the buffer is, that gives you more privacy, because then you won't have a building towering over your homes. And the two-story building that's set in the far end of the lot actually has a one-story facing your homes to start, and then as Ms. Mataj had pointed out, it starts after 15 meters, the two-story building starts. So you actually have the benefit of the no windows and the low construction. So I think the most of your concerns were addressed today, and I can say for myself as that we are satisfied with what was presented before us. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Any other comments or? Okay, so the motion before us is to approve the application as applied for with the conditions that were set in record. All those in support of this application? Okay, your application has been approved. So the next application is CAV 110 of 2019 at 1119 Morrison Heights Drive. Good evening, Mr. Wilmot.
Good evening, again.
Let me just canvass the room. Who is here in attendance for CAV 110 of 2019 at 1119 Morrison Heights Drive? Okay, I see none. The floor is yours. This is a proposed addition to an existing dwelling with a height and interior side variance. If you have anything further to add to the...
I think the application is fairly straightforward. We had letters of support that were issued earlier today, and I think they've been sent to you. So
Yes, we do.
I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had them.
Yes. Are there any questions of Mr. Wilmot at this time? Any items of clarification? I see none. If you're satisfied with the conditions, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. This is really a technical variance. The variances exist today. They're just being brought to the forefront because of the proposed addition. I don't see any impact being caused by that. I will note, as the applicant said, there are 3 letters of support. I would make that approval subject to development proceeding in general accordance with the drawings dated July 22nd, 2019, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
So July 23rd.
23rd, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Although both appear.
Yeah, she just wants it for her, for the decision. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's Brandon.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. So I didn't, did you get through them all? Okay. All those in support of the application? Okay, your application has been approved.
Thank you.
Application CAV 111 of 2019 at 215 William Street. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Terry Martino, Grenweiss Architect and Associates, and we are the agents for the owners at 215 William Street.
Thanks, Mr. Martino. Who is here for application CAV 111 of 2019 at 215 William Street? I see none. This is for, again, a proposed addition and renovation of an existing dwelling. Mr. Martino, do you have anything further to add to the application?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I would just say that we reviewed the planning report and concur with staff's comments. I believe the Secretary Treasurer has 3 letters of support, which were sent to her late this evening. If not, I could give you hard copies right now. These were received from 225 William Street neighbors, 68 George Street, and 214 William Street, as well as my owners. The owners of the property have consulted widely with their neighbors to the north and had some good discussions with respect to the proposed development.
Okay.
I can also inform the committee that we have met with the Heritage staff on site, and they will be appearing Heritage after this approval, and they seem to be at least in general agreement with what we're planning to do.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. Are there any items of clarification or questions of Mr. Martino? I see none. Yes, Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Yeah, there was an email that came in today from one of the neighbors who indicates that there's been a meeting with the homeowners and that as a result of the meeting, there are assurances now, and the one letter of objection really is a moot point now. Can you verify that?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I had an opportunity to meet with Mrs. DiCenzo and her husband Mark as well yesterday. They met with the owners, I think, yesterday evening, and they had a good meeting and have come to an agreement with the sort of development of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Very well, thank you. Anything further to add before we take the matter into committee?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martino. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the submitted materials, including the drawings and application package, staff report, and the verbal comments from the applicant, including clarifications with respect to and providing the addition 3 letters of support and clarification with respect to the previously provided letter of opposition and email that's come in. I am satisfied that the requested variances conform to the test of the Act. I will put forward a motion of approval subject to conditions. Those conditions being that the additions be built in general accordance with the site plan dated July 31st, 2019, and the elevation drawings dated July 30th, 2019, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Application CAV 113 of 2019 at 9 Ennisclare Drive, East. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Richard Wengel. I'm the architect for the proposal, 102 Avenue Road, Toronto.
Good evening, Mr. Wengel. Who is here for application CAV 113 of 2019 at 9 Ennisclare Drive, East? Are you the applicants? Okay. Is there anyone else who's here for this application? I see none. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've reviewed the comments from the Planning Department. We have no concerns with the contents of the report. I'm here to answer questions. I think it's a very straightforward proposal that I believe meets the 4 tests of the Act.
Yes. We do have 2 emails in support of the renovation in addition to the existing dwelling. Are there any questions of Mr. Wengel at this time? I see none. If you're prepared for us to take this matter into committee, we are prepared to do so.
Yes.
Very well. Who is ready to move a motion? Okay, Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's staff report, which I note the staff is in support of. Having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there were no written or oral objections, but there were letters of support, I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance subject to the following conditions, which are that the proposed development receive development engineering site plan approval, and that the addition be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated August 1st, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Madam Chair.
Application CAV 115 at 511 Maple Grove Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is Oz Kamal. I'm with MHBC Planning, here on behalf of our clients, Sreet Oakville Limited and Sobeys Development. I'm joined here with Sobeys Director of Development, Phil Busby. We've read the report. Staff are recommending approval subject to conditions. The only thing that we wanted to clarify was condition number 2 with respect to, we have no issue with the maximum floor area. That is what we are asking for. But we are just looking for clarification, as it says, within the existing building, only as provided in the submitted site plan. The site plan that was submitted just highlights the Sobeys building, so we're assuming that it means that this accessory use would only be permitted with Sobeys, and if that's the case, we're fine with that.
I will get you that clarification in one moment. I just need to canvass the room. You were very fast for me. Application CV 115 at 511 Maple Grove Drive. Who is here for this application? Are you your? I don't know. I need some information. Oh, very well. Okay. So before we get you that clarification for the condition, perhaps you can take us through your presentation for the benefit of the gentleman in the audience.
Sure, thank you. As part of Sobeys' larger initiative to rebrand their existing store located on the subject land, they're seeking to install an indoor vertical garden unit within the existing Sobeys building. And what will happen with that is that it will grow a variety of vegetables, things from lettuce, cabbage, herbs, things of that nature. It's a different approach, a more innovative approach. And because the zoning bylaw actually, the only place where it identifies growing is agricultural, we had various meetings with planning and zoning staff, and they recommended that we make this application just to clarify that the use is permitted, so that when we apply for building permits, there's no issues raised. But there is no change in parking, there's no change in access, everything is contained within the building. I do have some potential renderings if it please the committee. Sure. I'm more than happy to just pass these.
We're always happy to see the renderings.
Okay. Do I come up? Or?
It's just, do you have
on
copies
the
for
thing.
all of us?
Yes, sorry.
Do you have extra copies as well?
I did. I brought extra copies.
Okay, you can hand them. Yeah, you can hand them to the secretary, but then use the blue mat to project them for the benefit of the audience.
Oh, you need one? Okay, let me just do this, and then I'll give you one. So this is just a shot of what it could look like in this, and again, this will be inside the store. The next, I think your package might be slightly different than mine in terms of the order. This is actually I prefer this shot because what it shows you is the store as it is, and then what you can see in the background over here is the area that they would anticipate where this the growing of vegetables could occur. So what happens is, just like you would go to the store today, And oftentimes, again, sorry, I'm thinking about grocery stores. So you go to your left and it's the produce, like there's the fresh vegetables, and you even get living lettuce and stuff like that there. That area would be modified and maybe shrunk down or shifted to accommodate this, which the intent is that the growing of vegetables happens up top. There's no access for the customer to that part because that's just where they grow. It's more just a visual. And it's kind of neat to see that, you're getting organic, homegrown like vegetables that are being grown in Sobeys, at Sobeys, by Sobeys. And then what'll happen is the employees, once the vegetables are ready, will pick the vegetables, bring them down, and you have organics within the store itself. It's really quite innovative what they're proposing to do here.
It's very cool.
And there's one more photo, but again, this is just showing a floor plan of where they're planning on putting it, and there's a produce section, and again, like it would make sense that it would be within the general area of the produce section, so that's all
But
that
this
is.
is sealed? You can see it, so it's behind glass?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and there would be irrigation within the glass.
Yeah, so it's a greenhouse style.
Very much like a greenhouse style, yes.
Hydroponic or soil?
It's hydroponic. Yes. I
All right.
hope that clarifies.
Yes, if we could just take a moment. Sir, would you like to address the committee, or have your questions been answered? No, if you have a question, you need to come and address the committee. Okay, so please come down. Just give us a moment. So your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Tong Wang, and from the 2052 Constant Drive.
Okay, Wang?
Yeah.
And your address again?
2052.
2052?
Constant Drive, yeah.
Constance Drive.
2052?
2052, yes, 2052. Yes, you're right behind on Constance Drive.
Yeah.
Okay, how can we help you, sir?
That question, because I saw here they are going to indoor growing some crops. So is that only the vegetable? Is that the drug related, like marijuana or not? That's my concern.
Oh, no,
because
I
they
believe
didn't
it's just
mention
vegetables.
That's
But
vegetable,
Hugh
right?
will answer that question. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Another one is because it's a greenhouse, so are they going to upgrade their air conditioning system? Because those commercial air conditioning are
Can
very
you
loud
repeat
at
that
night.
again? I didn't hear you.
When they have, it looks like they build an indoor greenhouse, right?
Yes.
So they will upgrade their air conditioning system or not?
Upgrade the air conditioning system. Okay,
Yeah,
so you have a
because
question about the
commercial
air
one is
conditioning.
very loud at night, so I'm not sure. Because
And
it's
circulation, okay.
run by 24/7. Yeah, that's my
Okay.
two concerns.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on one second. Ms. Murray, do you have a question for Ms. Wang?
I have a question for city staff, Madam Chair, that may help answer the question about the crop.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Hassan. You're up.
So, Mr. Hassan, it's my understanding that currently in Oakville, it is a no marijuana zone. Can you confirm that? In the sense that it is not we don't permit stores here to grow or sell?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that would be correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll still have the applicant comment on the crops and the air conditioning and circulation renovations, if any.
Yes, for the record, there is no intent to grow marijuana at this facility. In terms of upgrades, this will be a fully contained facility for the growing of the crops. I believe there's an upgrade to the electrical system that's required, but the air and everything else, this will be contained within, so it won't affect the store as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Murray?
And just a curiosity, so excuse me, are you working with like University of Guelph or a horticulturalist group, or do you have that internally at Sobeys?
Currently, we're not working with any of the universities from an academic perspective. We're just simply doing everything internally with our design group, and we're working specifically with a manufacturer of this system outside of North America.
Is this, you're only rolling it out in this store, or do you plan to roll it out in other stores as well?
Currently, the plan is to start with this store, and obviously, if we have success with rolling out this model, then we would look to implement it elsewhere as well.
Okay, very well, thank you. Are there any other items of clarification or questions at this time? Okay, so now you asked about the clarification for the condition, because this is the time that I ask you if you're okay with the conditions that are on, that staff have recommended. So, Mr. Hassan, we need some clarification for condition number 2.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, through a review of the application, I did discuss with the agent in terms of an appropriate size and scale for the proposed development within the existing building. That's why the wording is stated as provided the submitted site plan, just so we know that it is that Sobeys building specifically, not any other buildings on site, because it is addressed as one whole property. So.
Okay.
But-
Yes, because we have this, the previous variances for all of the applications that have come through from Maple Grove. Okay, that makes sense. Has that answered your question?
Yes, it does. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's nothing else, and you're ready for us to take this matter into committee, we can do that?
Anything else? We're good.
Okay, very well. Who is ready to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. This is so cool.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials that were submitted, undertaken my site visit, and heard the presentation and additional information that was provided, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the 4 tests of the Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval. This is an interesting and unique marketing and diversification of commercial uses. I'm happy to put forward a motion for approval, and that motion of approval would be subject to the 3 tests the 3 conditions that were provided in the staff report, namely that the agricultural use, indoor growing of crops be permitted in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated August 9th, 2019. That the agricultural use, indoor growing of crops be limited to a maximum floor area of 95 square meters, 1,020 square feet within the existing building, only to be provided in the submitted site plan. And that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you want this one?
Yeah, because I didn't get one.
Okay, no problem. Okay, application CAV 069 of 2019, deferred from May 21st of 2019 at 452 Sunset Drive.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members. Ida Evangelista, on behalf of the Atleys, who own 452 Sunset Drive.
Good evening, Ms. Evangelista. Who is here for application CAV 069 of 2019, deferred from May 21st at 452 Sunset Drive? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Go ahead.
So this application was in front of you on May 21st, as Madam Chair stated. And at that time, staff had concerns regarding the application.
Correct.
Since then, we met with planning staff, and we took, under their advisement, we made changes to the application. So what we've done is there was a garage projection, which we eliminated, and we also stepped back the house. So it gives us and gives you the architectural and articulation of 1 and 2 story levels, okay? And what we are proposing is an additional 164 square meters. We're not asking for height, side yard setbacks, no variances in that regard. We're just asking for, within that same footprint, with no other variances, the additional 164 square feet. I am in receipt of the letter from the Mr. C on Withal, and I would just like to point out, there we go. So this is 465 Withnell, and this is where we are proposing our home. And as you can see, that they do have a 2-story home, and the garage portion, which will be facing Withnell, is only 1 story, and the home this one-story portion, and then the actual steps back, and it'll line up with where the two-story steps back. It'll line up with their two-story home. And this application is minor in nature. It will not result in any impacts on the neighboring properties or adversely impact the character of the neighborhood and area. It is within keeping of the fabric of the community. This is a stable residential area of 1- and 2-story homes, which continues to evolve with new builds. I respectfully submit that the proposed home will be compatible and will live harmoniously with other homes in the neighborhood, and this application does meet the 4 tests.
The committee.
We are, Madam Chair.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion?
Have a question?
Oh, you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh.
Apologies, my question through you, Madam Chair, is for
Staff?
For staff.
Oh.
Staff in the
you want
requested conditions from circulated agencies, condition number 1 says that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings Mark II. What does, Mark II, what am I looking?
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just going based on the title block on the plans that were provided. I assume that's Mark II means revision 2. I just wanted to be accurate in terms of the depiction of which plans we were looking at.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Got it. Revision.
Any other items of clarification? I see none. Who had their hand up? Oh, were you going to do it? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that the staff is in support of, having also taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there was one written or oral objection, which I believe that the applicant has addressed, I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 of the tests under the Planning Act. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance, subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and the elevation drawings Mark II, dated July 24th, 2019. Yeah, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, have a good evening.
You too. Okay, our last item on our agenda is CAV 090 of 2019, deferred from July the 23rd. This is for a second-story addition at 475 Third Line. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee and the staff. My name is Azmin Khosravi. I'm from Care Engineering. I'm representing the agent in this case.
Mr. Khosravi, I know that you're the only person in attendance right now, but I still have to do this on record that to show that no one is here for application CAV 090 of 2019 at 475 Third Line. SEMA. Go ahead, sir.
Great. The application is a deferral from a previous application that was filed in July, I believe.
Yes.
The reason of deferral at the time was it was a miscalculation on our behalf and the discrepancy that it was caused as far as the overage that we were asking. So we took the matter in hand and coordinated with the planning department and reduced the amount of the overage that we had over the gross floor area down to 1.93% basically. So the two we're asking pretty much okay on the setbacks on the sides and in the rear. The two variances that we're asking is with regard to the front yard setback, which is legally, the yard legally existing minus 1 meter. So we're asking for additional 0.5 meters, 2 feet. And as well, for the overage, basically for gross floor area, we're asking for additional 146 square feet, which is both, in my opinion, minor in nature in conformity with the character of the neighborhood, and meets the 4 tests of minor variance requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Khosravi. Is there any items of clarification or questions at this time?
Just a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Sorry, just a comment.
Of course.
In the future,
Sure.
this is very small print, it's really hard to read.
Of course.
If in the future you could make it, that would be appreciated.
Certainly,
Thank you.
certainly. If I may address the committee, these are large format prints, actually 24 by 36, but because of the committee does not accept large formats, in essence, we had to reduce the size, so that's why the printouts are not legible, if you wish, in this case. Yeah, my apologies.
Thank you. Anything further? If you're satisfied with the comments from staff and their conditions, we can take the matter into committee.
Of course.
Yes. Okay, who would like to move the final motion? Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the application and noting the revisions that have been made, thanking the applicant for making such revisions, listening to the presentation and noting that there were no letters of objections with regards to this application, I'd like to move a motion that the application be approved as applied for with the 2 following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings revision number 3 dated July 19th, 2019, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Okay, very well, thank you very much. Is there a discussion on those recommendations? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You too. We have minutes to confirm from August the 27th. Who would like to confirm those minutes? Ms. Murray, thank you. And motion for adjournment. Ms. Murray, thank you.